right now. Welcome. This is the Journal Star editorial board, and we are visiting with at-large city council candidate Mary Hilton today for our editorial board endorsement interview. First off, Mary, thank you so much for joining us. It's a beautiful day, and it would be tempting not to be Zooming right now. We appreciate the time that you're taking to talk with us, and we appreciate the time you put into running for office, because we admire everybody who sticks their neck out to try to help better our community. So we will introduce ourselves to you, and then we will spend the next 30 minutes with you telling us all about yourself. So
Okay.
Kent, you want to start?
Sure. I'm Kent Wolgamott, and I write about arts and entertainment, and I've been on the editorial board about 12 years now.
Okay.
All right.
Heard you on the
John-
radio a lot.
Ah, okay. Now you
John
have a
Good.
face with a name.
I'm John Schreier. I'm one of our assistant city editors, and I've been on the editorial board about 4 years. And then behind me is
Hi, Mary. I'm Pat Sangemino. I'm a nighttime news editor, and I've been on the editorial board. This is my second year.
And
Pat.
they're safely distanced. Pat's not just smaller than John. They're both regular sized. Robin?
Hi,
Oh, Robbie?
I'm Robbie Estes. I'm the controller for the Journal Star, and I've been on the editorial board about 2.5 years.
Hey,
and
Robbie.
Robin is running behind. She's listening right now, but she's on mute. So she's getting to her computer at the moment.
Okay.
Hi, Robbie.
And that, Robin Eshelman, former city council person. And all right, well, we will launch into this. Mary, first off, it's been a heck of a year in politics. I can't say that after watching local and national and state politicians wrestle with issues that it's looked like a lot of fun at times. So why do you want to run for office? And what's prepared you to serve?
A good question. Just first off, to start out, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity. And I want to thank you for endorsing me with the top 6 before the primary. That was gratifying, and I was for that. And I especially thank you for yesterday's good story, pointing out that I got the most votes on election day. So that was exciting. I was hoping somebody would see that. So, I have been passionate about good public policy for most of my adult life, even before that. I grew up in Atwood, Kansas, born in McCook, but raised just over the border, literally on the border, Kansas-Nebraska border, south of Trenton, Nebraska. And my hometown had some important political people in it. So Mike Hayden, who was Speaker of the House at the time when I was in junior high, was from my hometown of the Kansas House of Representatives, and he ran for governor. And his niece was my best friend, and we started knocking door to door, and I started learning about what public policy was and what platform issues were, and just got a love for politics and began to pay attention. And so I have really been a student of political philosophy, and I love history, and I love founding fathers and some really good presidents over the years that I've studied. And so when politics have been my hobby, and my family is kind of the type that rushes in to the fire, to the battle. My husband joined the Navy Reserves, got a direct commission as an officer after 9/11. And so we've just been engaged in wanting to serve our community. I was, didn't join the Navy, but as a wife and a supporter and a mom of, we had 3 little children at that time. It was my way of serving the country too, by supporting him. And so I was grateful to do that. And we've been a Navy family for the last 19 years. He continues to serve and will serve another year or 2 in the Navy Reserves. And so after the events of our civil unrest, I just decided I was going to start attending city council meetings. I've been a conservative issues advocate for a long time, about the last decade of kind of being an activist and really caring about issues before the school board, taxing issues at City Hall specifically, and a number of issues at the legislature. So I pay attention to what's going on, and issues that I care about, I've just studied a lot to be able to form an opinion and to get other people involved in caring about their government. And so I live across the street from 4 police officers. They kind of gave me the rundown of what happened the nights of the civil unrest and the riots, and I started attending city council meetings. Just haven't stopped. That was the first week of June. So I've read through, all of the policy, most every ordinance change, study, obviously the budget, the plans that have been before the council over the last year. And I, just was over that time able to really hone in on what my message was and what it is and what I am passionate about. It's just good basic government. I believe in limited government, but I believe that what the citizens of this city want and what citizens everywhere want really is for government to do a good job at what they're supposed to do, at the priorities of the city, those essential city services of, roads and infrastructure, public safety, specifically first responders, having reasonable taxation that they can afford to live, and having a vibrant economy in which they can, make an income that they can raise their family and be able to affordably live in this city. So those are the things, and that's why I'm running, to bring conservative leadership to the council that I think it's mainly lacking.
So was that your impetus was last summer's social unrest your impetus for getting into it, or had you planned on doing this before?
That's interesting. Like I said, I've been involved. I've testified at city council before, and a lot of time, but most of my efforts and interest have been more on like the social issue side of things. And so the city council hasn't had a ton of those, but they have had some that I've been involved in over the years. But it was really those events. I just thought, wow, what is happening with our city government? And, I wanted to find out more and be directly involved. And so that's why I started attending. Running for office, I always thought I probably would someday, but I have, I still have 4 children in my home, 3 of that have graduated. And so it's not exactly the best timing, but after just a lot of prayer and seeking wise counsel from people who I thought would tell me, no, don't run, it's not your time yet. They actually said, no, we think you should run, and this is how we're going to help you. And so I have had just so many people come around to help me, help my kids, help our family to be able to run the kind of campaign that's needed to be competitive and hopefully win in May.
What do you consider the most important issues that you would face on the city council, or the most important for you?
Well, there are a number of issues that I'm concerned about, but one of the things, and I think I hinted on this in some of my candidate questionnaires, is when I look at what the charter says about the responsibilities of city council, and I look at what I've observed and have been experiencing after sitting in city council meetings for the last 10 months, are kind of 2 different things. I see the council as being almost completely reactionary. I see that to the executive branch or whatever's coming down the pipeline. I don't see them really using their investigative powers that have been fully given to them according to the charter, and their auditing powers. I have a background in accounting and auditing, and I just believe that the citizens in this city really they want that accountability and that transparency and I think that the city council as the legislative body of the city has the responsibility to do that for the citizens. They're the direct representatives of the citizens. And when they are given those powers and they don't do that to provide those necessary checks and balances for good government to ensure that their money is being invested wisely in the things that they think it should be spent on, and to be having follow-up and with yearly spending and project completion and evaluation of that, not just within the departments doing it, but that the council having oversight in that. I realize it'll take a lot of work, but I have a lot of energy to do that. And I really want to see that the citizens feel like that their tax dollars are being spent wisely on things that they believe are important.
Anything else? I mean, you talked broadly about policy, but I mean, there's potholes, there's,
Yeah, okay,
I mean,
I'll
there's,
touch on that, yeah. So, well, let's just start with roads. I think one of my ideas is to do a better job of defining how money is spent on what we call roads. And so I think changing the definition to mean that that money that's intended, that is collected for wheel tax, that is collected from gas sales tax, that's collected for and perhaps even some motor vehicle tax that goes into the general fund, that that money would be solely on the roads that cars drive on. Because the citizens in Lincoln, as I've gone out to thousands of doors in town, thousands of phone calls, and the roads is right up there. They really feel cheated for all the taxes that they spend, for the ones they continue to pass on their own, right? Say, we still want better roads. We'll take the wheel tax, we'll take the quarter sale tax, and to still have unsalted, poorly maintained roads that don't meet their shoveling requirements either when the snow comes. They just want to see results. So narrowing the definition to the roads that cars drive on, where that money is funneled to. I think that's one of them. I believe that our city, for affordable housing going forward and for the organic growth of our city, to have sanitary improvement districts. Omaha is able to do that. And I think they have so many. I mean, the list is long. They get completed. They don't go bankrupt, but it does require a few things. And I know we've had one really bad apple in the Highlands project with that. But if the debt that those SIDs can take on is limited, if we know that they have really good engineers working on it, laying it out and evaluating the actual cost and having good engineering up front, as well as having a really wise, good sound board that oversees that, there is no reason that we cannot have SIDs and be successful like Omaha is. I think that will help on lot affordability and the housing crisis that we're in. Those are a couple of specific things, and I'm a conservative, and so just the overall idea of bringing conservative leadership, lowering some regulations, especially on the building code side of things, for housing. I think there's a lot of really nice ideas in the municipal code for building, but I think that we need to peel back some of that so that we can have less expensive houses have an opportunity to be built in our home, in our town, to be able to have actually housing affordability at all price points. Because the code goes much beyond just basic safety, which is of course necessary and reasonable, but to actually have, to tell every new home builder that they have to have certain kind of windows and so much, high quality insulation. And there's so many things that can, I think, be tweaked to make housing, new houses more affordable, and that will help our local business economy.
What about, obviously COVID has changed a whole lot of things for people on personal levels. It's also been an issue that has been wrestled with on the city government level. What, how or has COVID changed the way you think about city government, or the way you think other people ought to think about city government? What impact has COVID had on, the way you envision the city council working?
Well, I mean, everybody's been really hurt by COVID. I mean, I have a really close friend right now who got a vaccine 2 days ago and is in the hospital today and having terrible side effects from the vaccine. I had a super good friend that I've served with in a ministry capacity for almost a decade and a half who died of COVID on December 23rd. So, you know, from a personal standpoint, it's been difficult, you know, watching my kids in high school, especially, and the disappointments that it's come. But, you know, life is full of all kinds of trials and disappointments, and, you know, trials make us all stronger. And I hope that we can actually have a real reasonable evaluation of how city government has reacted to this. I believe that there has been overreaction in areas. I don't believe in mandates and shutdowns. I believe every business is an essential, and I believe in personal responsibility, and I believe in good education. But ultimately, I believe that people need to be able to make their own health decisions, and businesses to be able to make those that best suit the needs of their business and their employees. And of course, we need to be sensitive and to protect the vulnerable around us. And I think that we have an amazing community that is really rallied behind those vulnerable citizens to, you know, to get the food and the help that they need, that they don't have to leave their home. But yet there's been incredible mental strain on, you know, most everybody through this. And I think we've seen that in terms of the mental illness cases, the suicide rates, crime, domestic violence. I mean, there's been some really rough circumstances, which is why we have to have a really nuanced and meaningful debate to be able to evaluate how city government did. I think that it needs to start probably at the legislative level on the kind of powers that we're willing to give a health director under such a crisis. Should they be able to make statutes and laws and really bypass the legislative body of the city, being the city council? I think that has to be made, though, at the state level. I think that the council needs to, if they don't have the ability to be able to make some of those legislative those legislative opportunities they might have, that they would at least be able to have a forum of which people can come and still speak about those things. I think a lot of that open debate was shut down by our council members and really silenced the public in a lot of ways to be able to come. There has to be some peaceful outlet for citizens to be able to seek redress from their government. And that happens to be the city council in our city. And so we have that open forum, that open meeting. And I believe that unnecessarily people have been shut out of the room, and it's not provided the accountability that our city needs to the council members as they cast votes. And they just haven't been able to hear from the citizens. So there's a lot of things that can be done, I think, to improve, and it'll just take evaluation to see, you know, in hindsight and learn good lessons from that.
Okay, you've touched on transparency. You know, I won't even pretend to be objective about transparency because we're the news media. We're all for transparency. There's no point in saying otherwise. There's generally in government been a trend toward, and you know, there's a handful of laws I could point to that have been passed or debated in the legislature to take back some of the guarantees of the open meetings law, open records. What does transparency mean to you, and how would you help foster that with, you know, not just the media, but the public at large? What would you propose to enhance transparency?
Well, you know, some of it's just educating them of how they can be involved in their government. I mean, a lot of people just don't even realize they can come down to city council meetings, that they can go to pretty much almost every meeting and every committee that meets or commission, that they can be part of those things. And I just don't think that people realize that. so, perhaps it's just educating them. It takes time to do it as well. I'm glad that we have, the interactive TV link to be able for people to be able to tune in and to learn about that. A lot of people just don't have time. They're raising their families and kids and, caring for their neighbors, their families. So I know that it's not like the passion of everybody to be involved, as much as some of us are, but transparency is important. And I think that, that it just every opportunity to be able to have that open forum, to continue that, is very much necessary to bring accountability. Because we have to remember that in our form of government, that it is the power is really in the people, and we derive anything as a representative, as a public servant, is truly out of the consent of the governed. And so if they're consenting, they need to know what's going on. And so, it needs to be part of, what you all publish as well, to be able to cover all those sides so that the word can get out.
You mentioned the open mic portion of the city council meeting being, something that you didn't feel was handled particularly well. Were there any other things that pop into your mind from the last year that you thought to yourself, if I were on city council, I would have done this or that?
Well, from the armchair, it's easy to judge, right?
Exactly. And yeah, that's.
I don't want to judge too much. I was really there to observe and learn. But, certainly there were council members that wanted to shut down the debate. I mean, honestly, to make a proposal to end the open portion meeting when there was a whole hallway of people that wanted to speak, and to end the meeting after 2 open mic speakers, of course, that is not going to jive very well. But there were also times, to be honest, that it was pretty scary to be part of that open forum down at City Hall. There was a lot of, activists on every side that were down there that were feeling very strong, about issues pertaining to the city, pertaining to the police. And so I don't know, there just must be that open forum though, because, if we don't have dialogue and discussions that are meaningful and really listen and have that good conversation, then that's when, violence can break out. And we don't want to be about that. We're a city, we're a nation that is, combined not on like our background or anything. We have a creed that we believe in, that is the ideals of America that join us together. And I think we need to unite around the things we can really agree on, and promote those in our local government as well.
What about, I'm just thinking about maybe some of the more routine issues. I know that the housing development at Wyuka, that drew a lot of, how did you feel about that particular issue? And the way it was heard?
Yeah, I met a few of those Hartley neighbors that live really close to the cemetery. And, I sat down and visited with them about an hour before they went in and spoke that day. And, I just think it's an important idea of keeping established neighborhoods in the ways that they were developed. I believe that a lot of times, so those people, no one wants stuff to change in their backyard. That's just the way it is, right? For all of us, that you buy into where you live because of what it's like when you buy it into it, the house and the neighborhood. It's just the way it is. And so they want to be protected and heard, and have their grievances taken up. And, and as city council members, it's hard to weigh all that. You want to have, I believe in free enterprise and the free market driving, development in a lot of ways within, reasonable regulations and zoning. I believe in keeping neighborhoods established. But yeah, we do have a housing issue, a housing crisis, and we need building. We in some ways have to build ourselves out of this as we grow as a city. But there's safety issues. Hartley, has a concern, the Hartley neighborhood with having a higher crime and, the less, individual homes, family homes that you have, leads to more instability. And so, I felt there, they made some really good points, and sometimes those aren't always evaluated maybe like they should be into some of those decisions.
All right, well, Mary, I have one last question, but before I ask it, I just want to make sure, see if anybody else on the editorial board has a question for you.
Mary, I actually have a question related to that. You mentioned that Lincoln has to build its way out of its housing shortage. And when it comes to particularly to building affordable housing and the rentals that the mayor and the city council have sought, you're going to have to build those a lot of times as infill housing rather than around the perimeter of the community. How do you balance the need for this new housing with the concerns of the existing neighbors?
Well, I mean, that's just it. I think that I know that when I look at like the South of Downtown project, the idea is that there's very few homeowners as it is, and where there's single family homes, pretty much the idea is to level those older homes and to replace it with infill and apartments, which I think will create even more instability in that neighborhood. I'm concerned with the idea that we have to, the mindset behind affordable housing often takes the place of rental homes, rentals, not just homes, but apartments, and to subsidize those. I think that what makes for affordable housing is when you have housing at all price points, but that you also are focused on having affordable housing of home ownership. And so, because that's really what in the long term brings not only community stability, but stability with our children when they live in a home, when their parents can invest in the community and put their roots down. Home ownership should be the focus, and we should be seeking affordable housing in that route.
All right, well, Mary, did anybody else have another one? Oh, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi there. Is there still an auditor down at the city?
In what respect, Robin? Can you just fill in a little bit more? I mean, I know that there's 1.5 staff members for the city council, but I'm not sure what exactly you're asking.
Oh, well, if there's still an auditor in the city budget department.
I will, honestly, I'm not certain about that. I mean, I'm sure that there's some.
I passed a resolution 10, 12 years ago to have one put in, and I wonder if that individual has been removed, or if
I'll have to follow up with that. I met with the finance and budget director early in the fall. That was an issue that we talked about.
The position should show in the city budget as one of the staff people in that department. That might be a place to start, but I mean, you can just call them. And
sure.
If so, when did that get discontinued? Because there's provision in the city charter to have an audit.
And Robin, what were you, can I just ask you the reason behind why you went that route? Was it because of the auditing powers of the city council?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of, buckets of funds for various projects that had been granted by the feds or the state or whatever, and had all sorts of constrictions to the funds. And it was, part of having an auditor was having a person that could sort all of that out and understand what those various funds were for and how they were being used. These are things that are not just from tax money, but the sources are maybe from somewhere else. I mean, that
Right.
was, but yeah, just the transparency, and that position had been eliminated at some point. And as a city council, we worked together and we got it reinstated.
I will have to follow up on that. I'm intrigued. I will do my research, Robin. Thanks for
Well,
pointing
just-
that.
I was just looking at the budget and I don't see it in there, but I wouldn't swear because I'm trying to do two things at once. We need to wrap up, but I did want to just ask this one last question of you, Mary. And it's
Sure did.
simply, what didn't we ask you that you really, really wanted us to? Is there any point that you wanted to make we didn't get to?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me that, because I was just thinking in my mind, I really did want to address public safety. I have spent a lot of time looking into our police department, the challenges that it's faced. I spent a lot of time, testifying on behalf of the police and researching, the kind of work that they do in our city, and the community policing that they do, and the involvement that they have in our city, and what they're facing as a police force. And I know they have the backing. We heard from them this summer with the wanting to people reaching out to have the city accept the COPS grant, the mayor accept that. Whenever you and I have troubles in our neighborhood, home break-ins, we of course want the police to show up, and any reasonable person does. And we can't have a good city without having, really good public servants in public safety and protecting us. And I think that we're seeing a really concerning trend with our police department. I think they do great with the resources they have, but they're very taxed. They don't have a leader right now, and I know that's in the making, but I pray that's the kind of leader that will really seek to protect life and property, that they will be sensitive, to the diverse community that we have. But really, we have to have law and order in our community. And with escalating crime rates that we're seeing, and maybe as COVID numbers continue to go down, that will change, I hope. But we are going to grow as a city, and we really have to address seriously the diminishing numbers of police officers. We can't let the national narrative of what happens with police in faraway cities be a detriment to our own police officers who don't have those kind of issues that maybe crop up in some police departments. They do a great job of really policing themselves. They have great leadership, and they really want to serve the community. I did a ride along with one of the officers one evening, and there's not that attitude of like, well, I'm going to get them. It's not like, oh, I can't wait to arrest somebody. It's no, like, I spent the evening. The police officer just gave warnings, for people not coming to a complete stop, and other issues. And so there's just, I think there's a lot of care and sensitivity, not overreaction on behalf of our police. And I pray that not only the city council, but the mayor would be a spokesperson for their behalf, not against them, and let that national narrative reflect on our stellar police department so that it can grow, and that good candidates will come forward, because being a police officer or firefighter, whatever kind of public servant, is a respected thing to become, and that little girls and boys desire to become that. We need to have that standard in our city.
All right, well, I think we are out of time, Mary. So thank you very much for that last answer and all the other answers. We appreciate the time you spent with us, and have a wonderful weekend. And Edit Board, thanks for being on another one of these Zoom meetings with me.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks, John and Pat and Kent.
Thanks, Mary.
And Robbie, David, thank you for conducting the interview. I appreciate it, and I would really value your endorsement if you're willing to give it to me again. I'm working hard and give it all I got for 25 days and lean through the finish line, hopefully successfully. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.